2026 has been called the year of connection, yet loneliness is at epidemic levels. We have more apps, more followers, more notifications than ever before, but fewer real friends. The truth? Only authentic communities can cure this epidemic. Today, let's explore why God's design for fellowship is the answer we desperately need right now. Subscribe now for more faith-filled encouragement. Loneliness in 2026 isn't just statistics, it's personal. Let's look at Michael's story, which reflects the silent struggle so many face today. The epidemic of loneliness, Michael's story. Michael was 28, living in a bustling city in 2026. His phone never stopped buzzing, notifications from work emails, social media likes, and group chats. Yet when he faced a personal crisis, silence surrounded him. One evening, after losing his job unexpectedly, he sat at his kitchen table staring at his phone. Hundreds of contacts, but no one felt safe enough to call. This is the paradox of modern life, hyper-connected digitally but profoundly disconnected emotionally. Michael's story mirrors millions today. Scripture speaks directly to this. It is not good for the man to be alone. Genesis chapter 2 verse 18. God's design has never changed. We were created for community. Michael's turning point came when a coworker invited him to a small prayer group. Nervous, he attended. That night, instead of scrolling, he shared his fears. People listened, prayed, and encouraged him. For the first time in months, he felt seen. Comment below. Have you ever felt lonely even with hundreds of online connections? Michael's experience shows us the emptiness of digital connection without real fellowship. But God has already given us a blueprint for authentic community, one that has stood the test of time since the early church. God's blueprint for real community. The early church thrived not because of technology, but because of fellowship. Acts chapter 2 verse 42 says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer." Imagine walking into one of those homes. The aroma of bread fills the air, laughter echoes, prayers rise together. No one is left alone in their struggles. This is God's blueprint for community, devotion, fellowship, shared meals, and prayer. Galatians chapter 6 verse 2 reminds us, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." And 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 8 says, "Above all, love each other deeply." In 2026, we need this blueprint more than ever. Real community means showing up, sharing life, and carrying burdens together. Subscribe if you believe fellowship is God's cure for loneliness. Blueprints are powerful, but they come alive in real lives. Let me share two stories: James, who found freedom from addiction, and Ruth, who discovered joy after loss, both through the healing power of community. Stories of healing through community. James's story. James battled addiction for years. Alone, he tried rehab and self-help, but relapse followed. His lowest point came when he sat at his kitchen table surrounded by empty bottles. He felt hopeless. A friend invited him to a church recovery group. Hesitant, James walked into a room where men and women sat in a circle, sharing testimonies. They prayed, cried, and encouraged one another. Week after week, James returned. Around that table, he found accountability and love. Galatians chapter 6 verse 2 came alive. Carry each other's burdens. Healing didn't come from isolation, but from community. His table, once a place of despair, became a place of redemption. Ruth. James's journey shows how fellowship can break chains of addiction. Ruth's story, on the other hand, reveals how fellowship can mend a broken heart and turn grief into gratitude. Ruth's story. Ruth had been married for 40 years. When her husband passed, her dining table became a painful reminder of loss. She would sit alone, staring at the empty chair, tears falling into her food. Her church invited her to a weekly fellowship dinner. At first, Ruth resisted, not wanting to burden others with her grief. But eventually, she accepted. That evening, she sat at a long table filled with laughter, prayer, and stories. Someone passed her bread, another poured her water, and for the first time in months, she felt warmth. Acts chapter 2 verse 46 came alive. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. Fellowship turned her grief into gratitude. Soon, Ruth began hosting dinners herself. Her home was filled with neighbors and friends. The empty chair became a symbol of welcome, not loss. Comment: who could you invite into fellowship this week? From addiction to grief, fellowship brings healing. But it also brings strength. Daniel's story shows us how community doesn't just comfort, it empowers. Community as spiritual power, Daniel's story. Daniel was a college student battling depression. Far from home, overwhelmed by studies, he often sat alone at his dorm table, staring at textbooks he couldn't focus on. His prayers felt unanswered, his faith weak. One evening, a classmate invited him to a Bible study group. Reluctantly, Daniel went. The group gathered around a table, sharing scripture and personal struggles. When Daniel opened up, they didn't judge him. They prayed, checked in during the week, and encouraged him daily. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 17 became real. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Fellowship gave Daniel strength he couldn't find alone. His healing came not just from therapy, but from community. Over time, Daniel's table transformed from despair into power. Surrounded by believers, he grew stronger, more accountable, and more hopeful. Fellowship sharpened his faith, reminding him that God never intended us to fight battles alone. Subscribe if you believe fellowship makes us stronger. Daniel's transformation reminds us that fellowship is more than friendship, it's spiritual power, and that brings us to the heart of today's message. Real community is the only cure for the loneliness epidemic of our time. Loneliness in 2026 is real, but community is God's cure. Real fellowship brings healing, encouragement, and strength. Now let's recap. Isolation is dangerous. Community is God's design. Healing happens around the table. Fellowship is spiritual power. This week, don't settle for digital noise. Seek real community. Invite someone. Join a group. Share a meal. Pray together. Right now, God is calling you to find your people. Comment below, who are your people, and how has fellowship changed your life?